Her dad stabbed the roast like it had insulted him, then looked her dead in the eye and shouted, "Get out of my house!" Emma had returned home hoping for peace, but instead uncovered betrayal buried deep beneath holiday cheer. Cast out in the snow, she soon learned the truth about her mother's will, her father's lies, and the step-family who replaced her. What came next would turn the whole town against him. Stick with me while I share my story, and if it touches you, don't forget to support our channel by hitting that subscribe button, dropping a like, and sharing it with the people you care about. Emma hadn't been home in 2 years, not since the funeral, not since her father remarried just 6 months after her mother's death. But here she was, pulling into the snow-dusted driveway of her childhood home in Bend, Oregon. Christmas lights glowed warmly along the gutters, wreaths hung neatly on the windows, and a smiling inflatable Santa bobbed in the front yard. On the outside, everything looked picture perfect. Inside, it was anything but. The moment she stepped through the front door, the heat wrapped around her like a blanket, and so did the tension. Stephanie was the first to greet her, all chirpy warmth and fake affection. "Emma, look at you. Seattle must be treating you well," she said with a bright smile, planting an air kiss near Emma's cheek. Richard, her father, followed behind with a brief stiff hug. "Glad you made it," he said, avoiding eye contact. It wasn't her home anymore. The hallway, once lined with her mother's cross-stitched quotes and family photos, was now filled with sleek modern frames featuring Stephanie and her son Cody. Her mother's presents had been scrubbed away. No ceramic angels on the mantel, no handmade stockings. Emma stood there awkwardly, with a bottle of wine in her hand, unsure where to put it. Cody strolled in from the living room, looking smug. "Wow, you really came," he said. "Didn't think freelancing covered airfare." Emma gave a tight smile, but didn't respond. The jab landed exactly as he intended. Trying to stay grounded, she unpacked the small gift she had brought, a hand-painted portrait of their old family cabin, framed with care. She had poured hours into it, hoping it would remind her father of better days. She placed it gently on the coffee table, but Stephanie picked it up with a glance and a practiced smile. "Oh, how quaint," she said flatly. Emma swallowed the growing lump in her throat. She told herself this visit was about healing, about giving her father and herself a second chance. Maybe time really did change people. Maybe forgiveness was still possible. But as she looked around at the strangers who now filled the corners of her once familiar home, she couldn't shake the feeling that the worst was yet to come. The house smelled like cinnamon, ham, and pine. Christmas music played softly in the background, and everything looked like it had come straight out of a holiday magazine. Stephanie moved around the kitchen in her red apron, smiling like she was the perfect hostess. She offered Emma hot cocoa, then quickly added, "I hope you still like it the way your mum used to make it, though I had to change the recipe a bit. Hers was so sweet." Emma nodded politely, even though she knew that was meant to sting. Her mum's cocoa was one of her warmest memories. Stephanie had a way of twisting things, saying something that sounded kind but had a sharp edge just beneath it. Every smile seemed a little too wide, every compliment a little too forced. When Emma sat on the couch, Cody joined her and flopped down with a loud sigh. "So," he said, smirking, "still doing the whole art thing? Is that like an actual job now?" He laughed like it was a joke. "Mum said you do cartoons or something. Must be fun to draw all day and not worry about bills." Emma smiled thinly. "I work as a freelance illustrator. I have clients. I pay my bills." Cody just shrugged. Sure. Must be nice not to have a real job. Dad always says it's important to work hard and make something of yourself." Emma felt her jaw clench but didn't say anything. She didn't come back here to argue. She reminded herself it was just one night, one Christmas, one attempt at making peace. Later, while setting the table, Stephanie handed Emma a stack of plates. "Would you mind helping, dear? It's so nice to have a daughter around for once. Boys never want to help with anything." Then she turned to Cody and added with a giggle, "Not you, sweetheart. You're the exception." Emma bit her tongue. It was like this all evening. Little jabs, quiet digs, and forced smiles. Richard barely said a word. He was busy checking the roast, adjusting the table, and acting like everything was perfectly normal. Not once did he step in or tell anyone to ease up. He acted like he didn't notice. Emma kept her cool. She smiled when she needed to. She said thank you when she was supposed to. But inside, it was getting harder to breathe. This wasn't her family anymore. It felt like she was just a guest, barely tolerated, constantly judged. Still, she stayed calm. She thought of her mother, of the kind of person she wanted to be. She told herself to get through the night, to keep the peace. But deep down, she knew this wasn't peace. It was a storm waiting to break. After dinner, the family moved into the living room for the gift exchange. The tree sparkled with gold lights, and the fire crackled in the fireplace. Everyone looked cozy and cheerful, sipping cocoa or wine, but Emma could feel her nerves tightening. She had spent weeks painting her gift, and wasn't sure how it would be received. Stephanie handed out presents with flair, calling out names like a talk show host. Cody got a new designer watch from her, and Richard received a leather wallet with his initials engraved. Emma clapped and smiled politely for each gift, waiting for her turn. Finally, it was her moment. She picked up the carefully wrapped canvas and handed it to her father. "This is for you," she said softly. He raised an eyebrow and took it. Slowly, he unwrapped the paper, revealing the painting she'd poured her heart into. A winter scene of the family cabin, surrounded by tall pines and snow, just like it looked when she was a child. It was the last place she remembered feeling truly happy. Richard looked at it for a few seconds. "Ah," he said, forcing a small smile. "You painted this?" Emma nodded. "I thought you might like it. It's the cabin, from a photo Mum took before she—" "Yeah, I see that," he interrupted quickly. "Well, thank you." He leaned the painting against the couch and didn't say another word. Emma felt her heart sink, but she told herself not to read too much into it. Maybe he was just surprised. Then Cody opened his next gift from Richard, a small envelope. He tore it open and burst out laughing. "Holy crap, $5,000! Everyone clapped. Stephanie beamed. Richard chuckled and gave Cody a pat on the back. "You've worked hard this year. Thought you deserved something extra." Emma stared at them, stunned. $5,000. Just like that? Her dad had barely acknowledged her painting, something that took time, love, and memory. But he gave Cody, his stepson, a check like it was nothing. She tried to smile, tried to keep her face calm, but inside, something cracked. It wasn't about the money. It was about what mattered. And clearly, she didn't. The next morning, Emma woke early. The house was quiet, still dark except for the soft glow of the Christmas tree. She padded into the kitchen to make some coffee, hoping for a moment of peace before anyone else woke up. As she reached for a mug, she heard a voice coming from the hallway. Stephanie, speaking low but clear. "I just want to be sure we're set before New Year's," Stephanie said. Emma froze. "Yes, the updated version. Cody's name should be on the deed, and Richard wants to finalize everything before tax season." Emma's heart stopped for a second. She stayed still, careful not to make a sound. Stephanie continued, her voice calm and businesslike. "Yes, Richard and I both agree. There's no reason to complicate things with old names or outdated clauses. She's not really in the picture anymore." "Okay, thank you. I'll make sure Richard signs the new documents this weekend." The call ended. Emma backed away slowly, her mind spinning. Old names, outdated clauses. She's not really in the picture. That had to mean her. They were rewriting the will and putting Cody's name on the deed, her family home. She returned to the guest room, heart pounding, trying to calm herself down. Maybe she misunderstood. Maybe she was overreacting, but the words had been clear. The timing, the secrecy, it all felt deliberate. Later that day, when Richard was in the den alone, she took a deep breath and walked in. "Dad, can we talk?" He looked up from his newspaper. "Sure. What's on your mind?" "I overheard Stephanie on the phone this morning. She was talking about the will, about putting Cody's name on the house." Richard's expression shifted just slightly. "Emma, don't jump to conclusions. You probably misheard something." "No, I didn't," she said more firmly. "She said my name was outdated, that I'm not in the picture anymore." He sighed and set the paper down. "Look, things change. You live in Seattle. You've built your own life. Cody's here. He's involved. He helps out." Emma blinked. "So that's it? You're cutting me out?" "I'm not cutting you out," he said, raising his hands. "You're being dramatic. It's just simpler this way." She stared at him, struggling to breathe. This wasn't about simplicity. It was about erasing her. "You're wrong," she said quietly. "This isn't simpler. It's cruel." Richard didn't respond. He just picked up his paper again and turned the page. Emma left the room, her chest tight. Whatever hope she had for repairing their relationship was fading fast. Something was being hidden, and she was done pretending not to see it. Dinner was set like something out of a holiday magazine. The table sparkled with candles, crystal glasses, and perfectly folded napkins. The roast sat in the center, steaming and golden, surrounded by sides and sauces. Everyone smiled like they were in a commercial, except Emma. Her heart was racing. Richard stood at the head of the table, carving the roast with a proud smile, acting like the picture-perfect family man. Stephanie sat at his side, beaming. Cody cracked jokes across the table. Emma sat quietly, her stomach tight. She couldn't fake it anymore, not after what she heard, not after how her father dismissed her like she didn't matter. As he sliced into the roast and served plates, she watched him closely. He laughed at something Cody said, then turned to her with a polite smile. "Emma, would you like some?" She nodded and took the plate, setting it down gently in front of her. The tension in her chest grew heavier. Her hands trembled slightly. She set down her fork and knife, looked across the table at him, and spoke, calmly but clearly. "I know you changed the will." Silence. Everyone stopped mid-bite. Stephanie froze, her fork halfway to her mouth. Richard paused, roast knife still in hand. "I overheard Stephanie talking to a lawyer," Emma continued. "She said you were finalizing things, that Cody's name is on the deed, that I'm not in the picture anymore." The room held its breath. Richard's face darkened. "Emma," he said, voice tight. "Not now. Not at the table." She didn't back down. "Why? Why would you take me out of Mum's will? Out of the house? Out of everything?" Stephanie glanced nervously at Richard, but said nothing. Cody looked like he was enjoying the drama. Richard slammed the carving knife down on the table with a loud clank. Everyone jumped. "Get out of my house!" he shouted, eyes locked on Emma. "You want to ruin dinner with your accusations? Then leave, right now." Emma's mouth opened, but no words came. Her face burned. Her hands shook. She looked around the table. No one met her eyes. Not Stephanie, not Cody, not even her father, who now looked away, breathing hard. She stood slowly, her chair scraping the floor. No one moved. No one said a word. She was completely alone in a room full of people who once called her family. Without another word, she walked out of the dining room, through the hallway, and out the front door, into the freezing cold night. Behind her, the house stayed silent, except for the sound of the door softly closing shut. The snow fell heavier now. The cold hit her face like a slap as Emma stepped outside. Snow was falling harder now, blanketing the street in white. She didn't even grab her coat. Her hands trembled, her breath coming in fast clouds as she made her way to her car. Inside, she sat behind the wheel, heart pounding, eyes full of tears. She had hoped, desperately hoped, that coming home would bring healing. Instead, she had been screamed at and cast out like a stranger. She sat for a long moment, gripping the steering wheel, until her shaking finally slowed enough to drive. She didn't know where she was going. All the hotels she used to know had changed. Even the roads looked different under the thick snow. Eventually, she pulled into a roadside motel on the edge of town. The parking lot was nearly empty. It was nothing fancy, just a quiet, dimly lit building with cheap rooms. But she didn't care. She checked in with barely a word and collapsed on the bed fully clothed. Her stomach ached, her head was pounding, and her heart felt like it had been cracked open. The phone buzzed on the nightstand. One missed call. Aunt Linda. Emma stared at the screen for a second, then hit play on the voicemail. "Emma, it's me. I heard what happened. Richard had no right to do that. Listen to me carefully. There's something I need to show you. It's about your mother, about the will. I should have told you sooner. Please come see me. Tonight if you can." Emma sat up slowly, wiping her face. Aunt Linda had always been the only one from her mum's side of the family who stayed in touch. She had sent birthday cards, random texts, and messages asking how Emma was doing, even when no one else cared. Her mind raced. What could Linda know? And what did she mean about the will? Emma stared at the snow falling outside the motel window. The same cold that had pushed her away from the only home she knew now pulled her towards something else, something buried in the past. Maybe it was hope, maybe it was the truth. Either way, she wasn't done yet. She grabbed her coat and car keys. She had one more place to go. Emma drove through the quiet, snow-covered streets to Aunt Linda's house, her thoughts swirling like the wind outside. The motel's warmth already felt far away. She didn't know what she expected to hear, but something in Linda's voice told her this wasn't just about family gossip. This was bigger, something real, something hidden. When she arrived, Linda opened the door before Emma even knocked. Her face was serious, but her eyes were warm. "Oh, honey," she said, pulling Emma into a hug. "I'm so sorry. What Richard did tonight was cruel." Emma hugged her back, holding on a little longer than she meant to. It felt good to be with someone who actually cared. They sat in the living room with hot tea, the fire crackling softly. Linda didn't waste time. "I should have told you this years ago," she began, looking directly at Emma. "But I thought I was protecting you." Emma frowned. "Protecting me from what?" Linda sighed. "The truth about your father, about what he did after your mother died." She got up, walked to a drawer, and returned with a thin stack of papers. "Your mother's original will," she said, handing them over. "This is the version she gave me for safekeeping. She made it 2 months before her final surgery. Everything was left to you, the house, her savings, even the cabin. She wanted to make sure you'd be secure no matter what happened." Emma stared at the papers, stunned. "Then why?" "Because Richard rewrote it," Linda said bitterly. "After she passed, he filed a new version, one where most of the estate was jointly owned or conveniently updated, and you were left out." Emma's hands tightened around the will. "How is that even legal?" "It's not," Linda said. "But he had help, from Stephanie. What you don't know is that she wasn't some sweet woman he met later. She was already in the picture, long before your mum passed. Your father was having an affair with her for years." Emma's chest ached. "He cheated on Mum?" Linda nodded. "I suspected it for a long time, but I didn't have proof until I found old messages after your mum died. She was too sick to fight back, and by the time I put the pieces together, everything had been changed." Emma sat in silence, processing the betrayal. Not just tonight, not just the will, but the entire truth about her family. "He erased her," she whispered. "He erased me." Linda leaned forward, placing a hand over hers. "You don't have to let him get away with it. The original will still holds weight, and now that you know, you can fight back." Emma looked down at the papers again, her heart pounding. For the first time in a long while, she felt something other than hurt. She felt purpose. Emma sat at Linda's kitchen table the next morning, her fingers lightly brushing the edges of the original will. The pages felt heavier now, not just in paper, but in meaning. This was her mother's voice, her final act of love and protection. It had been ignored, hidden, and overwritten, but not anymore. Linda poured them both coffee and sat across from her. "You still want to fight this?" Emma looked up, eyes steady. "Absolutely." With Linda's help, she contacted a local estate lawyer named Carol Jensen, someone Linda trusted. They scanned the will, explained the history, and laid out the facts. Carol listened carefully, then nodded. "You have a case," she said, "especially if we can prove fraud or coercion in the rewritten documents. It won't be easy, but it's doable." Emma's heart lifted. For the first time in years, she felt like someone was actually on her side. Someone believed her, but she didn't stop there. Back in her motel room that night, she opened her laptop. She created a new anonymous TikTok account and Reddit thread titled, "My Dad Screamed at Me on Christmas, but the Truth is Worse." She uploaded a video, keeping her face partially hidden, and calmly told the story. Her father's outburst, the will, the affair, and the way her inheritance had been quietly stolen. She added screenshots, carefully edited to protect names for now. She told the truth without rage, just quiet, painful clarity. The next morning her phone buzzed non-stop. Thousands of views, then tens of thousands, hundreds of comments. Most of them were supportive. "This broke my heart. I'm so sorry, girl. As a lawyer, I can tell you this sounds shady AF. Fight it. Please keep us updated. You deserve justice." People began sharing it. Local community members recognized the details, even without names. Some even messaged Emma, sharing their own stories about Richard, their former dentist, and how he had always seemed too perfect to be real. Emma read every comment. It felt like the internet was lifting her up piece by piece. She wasn't alone anymore, and now she had a plan and an audience. Emma didn't expect the story to go viral overnight, but it did. Within 2 days, her TikTok video had over 2 million views. The Reddit post was trending on multiple subreddits. People were shocked, angry, and deeply moved by her calm, honest retelling of the betrayal she endured. She followed up with another post, this time including redacted legal documents, copies of the original will, and a timeline showing how quickly her father remarried and changed everything after her mum's death. She kept names blurred at first, but locals quickly connected the dots. People in Bend, Oregon, knew who Richard Collins was. Within a week, word spread through the community. It started with whispers, then came the fallout. Richard's dental practice began receiving phone calls, not for appointments, but complaints. Online reviews flooded in from angry former patients. People commented on his business's Facebook page, demanding answers. Some even stood outside with signs that read, "Justice for Emma," and "We believe her." Appointments were cancelled. Long-time patients left one-star reviews, calling him a fraud and a disgrace. One mum posted, "I trusted this man with my children's dental care. I had no idea what kind of person he really was." His carefully polished reputation cracked like thin glass. Stephanie, always craving attention and admiration, deactivated her social media accounts after receiving hundreds of critical comments. Cody's smug posts vanished too. Suddenly, the family that once lived so comfortably in lies couldn't hide anymore. Meanwhile, Emma kept her tone steady and factual in every update. She didn't scream or beg. She let the truth speak. She even shared small pieces of her mother's letters and journal entries, proof of her love and concern for Emma, further showing how much had been taken away. The town's support grew louder. Local news stations picked up the story, framing it as the Christmas will controversy. Anonymous sources confirmed Emma's claims. A former employee from Richard's office even messaged her privately, saying, "I always wondered how fast he moved on after your mum passed. I'm glad the truth is finally out." Richard tried to post a weak defense on his practice's website, claiming family matters were being misrepresented, but no one believed him anymore. His words felt hollow compared to Emma's clear documentation and emotional honesty. One day, as she scrolled through her notifications, she saw a photo someone had taken. The sign on Richard's office door was gone. The office was closed. She didn't smile out of cruelty, but she felt something settle in her chest. A weight, long carried, had finally started to lift. The truth had spoken, and people had listened. Months later, after all the court hearings and paperwork, Emma finally got the call she'd been waiting for. The judge had ruled in her favor. The original will, her mother's true last wishes, was upheld. Richard's rewritten version was declared invalid. Everything Emma's mum had left for her, the savings, the personal items, and most importantly, the family cabin, was finally hers. When she heard the news, Emma didn't cry. She just sat in silence, letting the truth sink in. Not just the legal victory, but something deeper. She had protected her mother's memory. She had stood up for herself, even when it felt like the whole world was against her. Richard didn't show up in court for the final ruling. His lawyer gave some excuse, but Emma didn't care. She hadn't seen him since that night at the Christmas table, and she didn't plan to ever speak to him again. As far as she was concerned, that chapter was closed. Stephanie and Cody had vanished from the picture, their reputations stained and their plans ruined. Emma didn't hate them anymore. She just didn't think about them. They weren't worth her peace. One sunny spring afternoon, Emma packed up her car and made the long drive to the cabin her mum had loved so much. It sat quietly at the edge of a forest, just as she remembered. The porch creaked under her feet, the air smelled of pine and old wood, and for the first time in years, she felt like she was home. Inside, everything was still. She unpacked a small box she had brought with her. From it, she pulled out the painting she had once given her father. The hand-painted portrait of the cabin, made with so much love and hope. He had rejected it, but here, it belonged. She hung the painting on the cabin wall, directly across from the fireplace. Then she sat down in her mother's old armchair and looked around the room. The silence was comforting now, not heavy. She took a deep breath, feeling the kind of peace that only comes after a long, hard fight. Her story had started with pain, but now it rested in truth, and finally, in peace. Do you think Emma did the right thing by walking away from her father for good? Or should she have tried to rebuild the relationship after everything came out? Let me know what you think in the comments. I'd really love to hear your take. And if stories like this speak to you, make sure to subscribe and hit the notification bell so you never miss a moment.